first of all, the game, I'm going to show it very simply. There's many versions of this. There's a game played with 2, a game played with 3 teams, but I'm going to keep it very simple. This is going to be a game of just 2 people. And if you look at the cribbage board, there are 2 colors, blue and red. It doesn't matter what color they are, but each player will have a place, a track. So thanks, Ken, as you look down there, you see the pegs, and you got 2 on the left and 2 on the right. And the way you keep score, as opposed to sitting there with a piece of paper and adding points up 2 at a time, 3 at a time, 2 at a time, you'd be there for days. It's very simple to just move the trailing peg to the forward slot. So in other words, if someone was to score 2 points and he's the blue pegs, you just take the following peg and move it 2 in front of the other one. So now if you look down at the board at a glance, you see, Mr. Blue has 2 points. The whole idea is to go up, and in this case, you can't mix it up because you're going in a straight, well, in a continuous path. The game will be to 121, and so there are 3 parts to this game. First of all is the deal, and the second part is called the play, and the third part is called the show. Well, first of all, you got yourself a deck of cards sitting in front of you, and you got to figure out who's going to go first. So you each cut into that same deck, and then you turn your card over. The lowest number, and by the way, ace is 1, king is 10. The lowest number gets the deck. He's won the deal. He's won the deal. Okay, so you do the dealer. Let's say the dealer is Bill. So Bill's sitting there and he's shuffling the cards, and he's going to deal 6 cards. 6 to me, of course, and 6 to him. We're going to look at our cards, and we're going to have to keep the best 4 cards for our hand. Then you take 2 cards, 2 discards, and you lay them in front of the other player, the one that has won the deck, won the deal. Now he has face down 4 cards. So that in essence is a second entire hand. These 4 cards together, that's called the crib. So that's the namesake of this game, are the 4 cards that have been turned down, seated in front of the dealer. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. Before we get into this slide, so we've cut the cards. Now you've dealt your hand. Okay, you've got all that going. The object is to complete 121 points. As you do this, you have to, now comes the play part, and this is where your hand interacts with the hand on the other side. The pawn is another word. I've never used this word, but the pawn describes the person who is not the dealer. So he comes out and he lays down a card. Face cards are all 10 points. Numbered cards are their value, and an ace is 1. So the whole idea is to go back and forth and to get it close to 31 as possible, but not going over. So the person that is not dealing lays down a card. He's got 4 cards in his hand. He lays 1 card down. Let's say he lays down a 6. Well, then you consider and you accumulate your count. So the 6 is, let's say, followed by the dealer who puts a 5 down. Well, he says 11. So you keep this flowing count going on. If you get up close to 31, but you don't have a card that will hit 31 exactly, and you have no other cards to play, you say go. This gives the other player a chance to lay down any cards he has that will take him to 31. If you hit 31 exactly, you get 2 points. If nobody hits 31, you get 1 point. Okay, Kent, next slide. Okay, here just an example of 2 of ours, sir, playing in our backyard. You can play this game anywhere you want. We played it on airplanes. We play this on picnic tables, as you'll see. It's something very, very simple. Now, as you're continuing if you continue to be in the play mode, if you put down a 4 and the other person puts down a 4, that's a pair. But you still say the count. So you'd say first person said 4, second person says 8 for a pair of 2. Then you go to the cribbage board and you peg 2. The way you do that again is by taking the following peg and moving it 2 in front of the leading peg. So you always know your score anytime. It's always the leading peg that will tell you. Now, as we're playing this back and forth, the cards, oh, one thing I forgot to mention, the cut. The person who won the deal sits back and the other person cuts the card, the deck of cards. The dealer turns the card over, and that's the show card. That's the cut card. This card comes into play later. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. This card does not come into play as you are going back and forth during the play mode. That is used for later on. Okay, so anyway, you keep counting. 4 and 4 is 8, so you say 8 for 2, and you keep going up to as close to 31 without going over. If you hit 31, you get 2 points. If you're next and you have, let's say 30, and you can't go any farther, you get 1 point. Okay, next slide, please, Kent. Okay, here's the scoring. Now, I mentioned that we go back and forth laying down cards, but you can also score during this time. Now, 15, in almost any other game, I don't think 15 means anything, but 15 is very important in scoring on this. If we are playing back and forth, and let's say someone puts a 9 down, the next person puts a 6 down, that's 15. So you say 15 for 2. So you take 2 points. A pair, like I told you a minute ago, which would be like 2 4s, that would be a pair for 2 points. Now, if you're going back and forth, and let's say the first player puts a 2 down, and the next player puts a 2 down, he has a pair for 2 points. If it goes back to the other person and they have another 2, there's 3 of a kind. That's 6 points. If the other player comes back and puts another 2 down, it's 12 points. You don't see this one very often. But anyway, just to let you know, 4 in a row of the same count, of the same number, will be 12 points. Next slide, please. You can also have sequences or runs. Now, in that first example with the 2 of hearts, the 8 of clubs, 6 diamonds, 7, these are back and forth. So the first player put down the 2 of hearts, second one put the 8, and then the 6, and the 7, and the 5. Well, if you look at that and you're going, oh, nothing there, wrong. Because the run is the 8, 6, 7, 5. They're not in order, but they are together. So if you were counting this and then you put that 5 down, you'd say, and a run of 4 is 4 points. In the next hand, down below, it shows 2 7s there. Well, the 7 breaks up the sequence, the run. So you can't get it because it's 5, 7, 7, 6. But there is a pair of 7s there, so that would be 2 points. Next slide. Okay, so now all the cards have been played and you've scored all the points you can. This is the third part. The person, the pwn or the non-dealer, goes first, and he lays down his 4 cards, and he's going to count them out. First of all, you count any 15s, and then you accumulate your score as you go. So if you have a 15 for 2 points, and there's another 15 in there, you say 15 for 4 points. So you constantly are adding, starting with the 15s, then going to the pairs and the runs, etc. So that's basically how you do it, except now you also use that cut card. That card is faced up is now your 5th card. So you can use that when you count your points. Something else, here again, something else I forgot, I apologize, that when you cut that card, if you cut a jack, that's called a knob, and you take 2 points. The dealer takes 2 points on the cut. Now, where does that play in? Also, you can play that with other cards in your hand. How about the next slide, please? Okay. If when you're counting your cards, the cut card is a heart, and you got the jack of hearts in your hand, that's called a knob also, and that's 1 point. So you start to count your 15s, 15-2, 15-4, 15-6. Maybe a pair is now 8. And the right jack or knob is a point. So you just kind of say, okay, I've got a total of 9 points here, let's say. Then you take and you score your 9 points. Then the dealer has now got, by the way, he's got really 2 hands because he's got a crib over there on the side and he's got his own hand. He will lay his 4 cards down, and also using the cut card will count his points. Then he pushes those aside and he turns his crib over. So with the crib, he does the same thing. He counts it as if it's an extra crib. Well, this kind of begs the question, but also you're kind of thinking, well, what cards should I keep? What cards should I bury? If you've got the crib and you've got a couple really good cards that you can bury because you're going to count them again. If you don't have that crib, you want to throw garbage in there, not to help the other person. So that's a little bit of strategy. I didn't want to get into a whole lot of strategy but that's part of it. Next slide, please. Okay, so we talked about three of a kind. If you have three of a kind in your hand, that's 6 points. Now, if you really want to figure out why that's 6 points, let's look at those 3 8s. Well, you put 2 of those 8s together, that's 2 points. You took 2 other 8s and you put them together, that's 2 more points. And if you take the 2 8s on the ends and put them together, that's 2 points. So a triple or a three of a kind is automatically 6. So after a while, you'll say 3 of a kind, 6, or 4 of a kind, 12. In a sequence, you always get 1 for each card in the sequence or the run. And of course, the flush, if you guys all play poker, so you know if they're all the same suit, then you get the same. If the crib, not the crib, if the cut card is also a spade, then you would get, in this case, you'd get another point. Next slide, please. Okay, now, in looking at this, Kent, can you take me back to the first slide? Okay, now if you could kind of blow this up, this, as you can see, there are 121 holes. And you see up at the end of the line, you have, it looks like a half diamond on the very final peg. There you go, right there. So the first one that crosses into that final peg wins. They've scored 121. In some boards, you don't have the luxury of that last peg there, but you'll know when you hit it, because sometimes you go up one side, down the other side, et cetera, on the peg board. This one's very simple. When you hit that final hole, you win. Now, if you don't, let's say you get all the way up to the end, but you end up in the hole before that, that's called the stink hole. And that is, people really get emotional when they get so close to winning this game and they end up in the stink hole. This is kind of the odoriferous side of it. Can you move down? That's the one. Okay, there's a line there that comes across the board. We said there was 121 points or pegs to win. If you miss it by 30, and that's where Kent has circled that, that's called a skunk. If you don't get past, if you score less than that, you've been skunked. So you're keeping score and number of games won or lost. If you end up below that line, you've been skunked, and that costs you 2 games. Now, can you show me the other one on the other? There you go. Now that one is 30 points farther back. So that's a total of 60 points. If you get beat by 60 points, then this has not been your day. Definitely has not been your game. So that's called a double skunk. So in losing that by that much, you'd lose the equivalent of 3 games. Now, it seems that you might wonder, well, how do you score all these points? Because a perfect game is 29 points. How do you show me a meld that you have that makes 29 points? Well, let's go on down to the last 2 right there. Now, can you blow that sucker up? Okay, now this is Barry. Barry's very happy with this hand. I'm going to walk you through how all the basic scores add up to this hand. The three, well, the three of clubs, which has the rock on it because the wind was blowing that day, is also played in this hand. So if you remember, we're going to count the 15s first. So you've got, if you see the 5, the 4, and the 2 3s, that's 15, that's 15. So you say 15-2. If you take the other 5, 4, and 2 3s, that's another 15. So if you're counting this, you said 15-2, 15-4. Now, look at all the little runs hanging around here. We have a 3, 4, 5, which is 3 points. You have the other 3, 4, 5, which is another 3 points. You have a 5, 4, 3. Well, okay, in one case, okay, let's try it again. 3, 4, 5 is 3 points. The other 3 substituted is 3, 4, 5. And then we do it from the other end. You take 1 5 out and you got 5, 4, 3. And then you do it again and the other 5, and it's 5, 4, 3. So we've got basically, you've got what they call a double run. So a double run would be 16. Can you all follow me so far? Okay, so you got 16 just from all the little runs, and you had 15 over here and 15 over here. So you now have 21 points. So that's a 21 hand. Now, if I haven't totally confused you yet, let's go to the next slide. Okay, now Adrian is very emotional, so he doesn't play poker. He's got a terrible poker hand, so he decides to play cribbage. He can yell and scream all he wants because his cards are showing. Now, a little bit easier to count this one because you can see them better. Now, if you were going to be counting, you have to count the 15s first. Well, obviously you see an 8 and a 7, there's 15. You see another 8 and another 7, 15. You see an 8 and another 7, there's 15. Now we can go back through the whole run sequence. That's a triple run. A triple run is always 15 points. A triple run of 3 is 15. So you just look at that and you say, after a while, you'll just say 15. So he has 6 in 15s and he has 15 in runs. So he has a 21 hand. So that's basically how you can get up. To get a perfect hand, what you would do, you would have in your hand 3 5s and a particular jack. Then when you turned over the cut card, that would be the other 5, the same suit as that jack. And that's a perfect hand. It's like a hole-in-one in golf. But the thing is, the camaraderie that comes with this game and on the stories that are told over this deck of cards are just as important as the actual game. And as I mentioned earlier, before you all came here, I've yet to see a cribbage player that didn't invite a new person to come in and look over his shoulder and get some pointers and join right in. So this is, if you position this right in your activity as a non-threatening type introductory game, you can build this. I think we only had 9 around the picnic table and around the backyard, but we're getting new members and I will go back and start promoting it again. And that's why I love cribbage. And that's our garden before we took them out of the pots this last week. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to any questions that may exist. I hope I tried to make this as plain as possible, but it does take a little bit of extra time and sitting there and watching somebody play it and asking them why they did it this way, what kind of strategy they did, why did you throw the fives away, why did you, anyway, that is part of the finesse of the game of cribbage, and the strategy comes with time. Thank you.
Bob, I have one question for you.
Yes, Ken.
In the last hand, when you're scoring it, you can only make a max of 21 points? Because you never counted the 3 sevens as a triple.
Okay, the 3 sevens, hang on. Yeah, okay, can we go back to that one? Let's take a look at that, Ken.
Sure.
Okay, blow her up.
Okay, you had the 15s 3 times.
Yep.
And you had 3 the 8 7 6s.
Yep.
And you got triple sevens.
Yes, now that's where it fits in, because you have 3 runs of 3, which are 9 points, and the triple of the sevens is 6 more.
That's
So
how you got 15 out of it. Okay.
Yeah, you have 3, 3, 3, and 6 on that, not counting your 15s, but just on your runs. If you have a triple run, sometimes they say that I got 16 without whatever. But yeah, triple run is always 15.
Okay. So you already had counted in the sevens, which I missed. Okay.
Yeah, and you're right, Ken. I should have gone back over that, because it takes all these little tiny building blocks that to make these big scores, and that's a good example of that.
Yeah, my name is Harold. I have a question.
Sure.
Harold. Not about the game. Okay, so in March of last year, I started a cribbage club for Branch 88.
Yes.
And of course, March of last year was COVID, so that sort of died right there. So the first thing I was trying to find a place, and I sort of have a place because we play pool and they have a room we could borrow. And then I went out and I tried to collect all of my cribbage boards. And then I'm trying to figure out, how do we set it up and how do we track the people and the points? So I'm looking for that whole side of it.
Well, I have to tell you that's the step where we haven't taken that step yet. That's something that we have to do. It's very easy to do that, but we just haven't done it.
So when you come in, you have 3 or 4 cribbage boards, and the people bring their own.
Yes, we have people bring their own, but true to form, I'll always be 1 cribbage board short, and so I always carry at least 1 extra cribbage board, and I just set them out there with decks of cards if they need them.
Okay, and then so you don't track the points? Who wins when you get points for the games?
No, we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten that far, and
so you're just playing for fun, and that's okay. So it's just playing for fun, just to get the feel of the game.
Well, and we have other things too. I mean, we got people that really like to play teams, and they like to play three-handed. So we've got kind of stuff coming at us from all different directions on this, and I haven't really resolved how to do that. And right now, I haven't been pressed to come up with something, even though I should.
Because that's where I was last March. Was some people wanted to play partners, and then they got into be not fair because you play with the same partners, so you already know the signals and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I sort of got into this battle about what do I know?
Well, I have to tell you that I've seen that coming down the line before, and I kind of cut it off before it happened. What I mean to say is, I've seen 2 people that knew each other very well, and they do this, and then you have other people that don't know how to play teams, and I'm thinking they're sheep being led to the shearing. So I kind of manipulated and rotated players and kept it going. Maybe 3 of a kind or 2 of a kind, or 2 players, 3 players, and then I'll rotate them because I want to get all the different players to play people they haven't played before.
And you doing this on the same day?
Okay, okay. We played the other day in the backyard. We played for 2 hours.
Okay.
I think at the Elks Club, I think we played for 2 hours.
That's fair. Okay.
I have to tell you though, at the end of the cribbage at backyard, people forgot about the time. Some people had to leave and do things, and the next thing you know, it was 3 hours. And then we're sitting around chewing the fat, and all of a sudden the cards are put away, and then now we're a big social circle, kind of catching up on old times. So, you know, there's all kinds of offshoots that this can go at, but under a structure like SIR, in a meeting place or something like that, you do have to come up, for the sake of whoever's place that is, to go with their rules. If they say you can play for an hour, or you can play for 2 hours, or whatever. So that doesn't really answer your question with what you're looking for.
So within the 2 hours, so like 2 people are playing and they win, or the game's over, so they go find one of the other people hanging around and play somebody else rather than play, you know.
Yes, but you know, it's something else, and I always thought it was a curse to have an odd number player who's sitting out. But you know, all of a sudden, you know, I was the one with the lowest IQ. I was the one that figured out last that, well, that person then rotates in, and then somebody else, the loser, rotates out. So
okay,
that's kind of how we're doing it right now.
Cool. I feel more comfortable trying it out now. I could do it with the fun and just say, keep your own score and we'll just sort of play for fun. That's a good idea.
But you know, it all depends on what you want to do. I mean, you're right. I mean, if I really had to know how to overcome breaking up the real professionals coming in as teams, you know, I kind of dodged the bullet. I went the other way and I didn't face the problem.
You serve food?
No. Yeah, in fact, I had to write up, I went through this whole thing with County of Napa. What I did, I called them, I said, let me tell you what I want to do. Tell me what I need to do. And so I said, how are we classified? And she said, well, you're classified as a small activity and you need to do this and you need to do that. I have a bottle of hand sanitizer there. I keep the tables pretty well, the people pretty well separated. So, I mean, I can't say they're all 6 feet away, but I'm doing my very best to keep them at different tables and at least somewhat safe.
But they're all using it. So you use sanitizer first because you're all using the same cards, right? That's
well, you know, I've got people that, how should I say it, that didn't, first of all, you're going to have all kinds of people coming out of COVID. I ran this up the poll talking to and I do it all individually. I want to get the temperature of everybody before I do this as to how they feel about coming back together. Well, we got everybody the guy that, well, you know, I'm vaccinated and I'm all that cares. I won't wear a mask. And we got another guy that says, well, I'm not going to come because I'm worried about variants to the strains of COVID. So, you know, he's staying away. We had someone else that wanted to wear gloves. We have somebody else. So I'm kind of all over the place on this. Yeah. And I knew I wasn't going to get 100% response, and I didn't. In fact, it's a neighbor 2 blocks down that wouldn't come because he wants to have more of a grasp on where these variants are going. And I respect everybody's, you know, nobody's right or wrong on this. So I just put it out there, kind of shooting for the middle.
Yeah, we're going through that too with bocce ball and pool.
I bet. I
Having
bet.
your own, all the rules and trying to, and so we're getting into wanting to see what they call now, what the vaccine passport or whatever. So you can't,
Yes.
that we don't want, I'm told that, you can't just take the word, you really want to see it. And I guess we don't really need to have a copy of it, just one of like pool person has to see it. And I guess that covers them for the rest. I don't know.
Well, Harold, it's funny you mentioned that because I saw that different activities they're thinking about opening up different activities here in Napa, and with the vaccine passport or a picture of it. And so I just, before we came together, with my smartphone, I just took a picture of my vaccine card, my passport. So I'm going to carry that with me. If you want to get funny, you could say, well, Bob, you could have forged that or something else. And I'm going to, for the first couple of times this happens, I'll carry my passport with me after I show them my photo. And if the photo works, then I won't, after a period of time, carry my vaccine passport.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Prop 102. Is this approved by the state, sirs?
Okay, this activity, we took it before the BCE and they approved it. I don't know what gave our BCE that we must have.
I didn't think there was any indoor activities approved by the state.
Okay, first of all, this is not indoor. This is all outdoor.
Ah, okay. That's
Okay.
easy.
All
Yeah,
right.
we
All right, that makes a difference.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, though. I think, obviously we've activated a lot of our activities, our bicycling, our hiking, obviously golf stayed going the whole time, and cribbage is now going. So we're opening it up, but the common denominator is it's all outdoors.
Any recommended online cribbage games?
There are various sites, for solitaire, things like that. My friends are into. I'm not usually into that.
I'm looking at one now called CribbageClassic.com.
Okay, there's one called Cribbage Pro that everybody talked about. We had one of these meetings to talk about the games earlier. And they said Cribbage Pro.
That's CROW?
PROW, professional.
Pro.
Yeah, professional. I have a cribbage. I had an online cribbage, and I quit using it because it kept giving itself 20-point cribs and 20-point hands, and it wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair. I said, hey, you're not going to be fair. I'm not going.
Well, but what about playing not playing against the machine, but two friends wanting to play online cribbage? That's what I really thought I would.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an app for that. I've not done that.
Or you could use Zoom. Zoom, you can play it online to show each other the cards. One guy has a deck of cards and he deals them.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you plaster them up on the camera, and then he can't look at them.
Very, very good. Now I apologize, guys. I came in a little late to this. Was there any discussion about when somebody miscounts their cards as to?
Well, okay, there's all kinds of. I didn't get into the variations like that, Bob, because we play that if you put the cards down and someone cuts them, they steal the deck. I mean, there's all kinds of, and stealing points, you don't count your points. The guy next to you, whoever comes up, I wasn't going to introduce that, but for the people who've been playing cribbage for some time, and if they're among friends that understand the same rules, because those rules I find them in some places and not other places.
I had a cousin, sadly, he was a big sir in Monterey, and he lived 101. And in the last, I don't know, 15 years of his life, I used to go visit him, and I had with my granddaughters who were very young, 3, 4, that age, and I'd sit them in my lap, and he'd give them cookies, and we'd play cribbage with them in my lap, and turned out to be really nice, you know.
Well, you know, those stories that I found that as we play these games, those stories come out. And now you know something about a sir you didn't know about before. So that brings people together too on a different level.
We play always that the cards count, no matter who finds the points. That's a nice, friendly game. We win a competitive, that's a different thing.
Okay, so in other words, person makes a mistake and your opponent says, no, it's really
The
this.
cards count.
And that way the person learns as well without being embarrassed. Yeah.
You just have to have
You know.
consensual adults in some of these rules, that's all.
Yeah. I think I have a photo of my wife in the hospital in labor with the cribbage board on her stomach and us playing, waiting. So there's another story.
Yeah. My wife won't play with me because I always win.
You want to really upset him, Harold, steal the points. When she
Yeah, no.
miscounts, do that. You'll be outside in a second.
When I was in high school, during the summers, there was this girl that we played cards all summer long. And I don't know if we were playing something, hearts or spades or something, but I would have like all these points, but I still let her go out because she didn't like me going out on her on cards.
Very wise.
Well, that goes back a lot of years.
Any more questions? Well, I think that's the end of this one then. It's been 50 minutes. We got 10 minutes before the next one. And Bob, fantastic. This has been recorded, so other members can look at it later. It'll be on the website. I don't know when Dick or Derek will get it in there, but the whole session got recorded, so it will be available to everybody else, whoever wants to see it.
Well,
Do we know where on the website?
And well, they post it, and I think they have somewhere on their website, they have like the Zoom recordings, and you
Okay.
just have to go through and search for it. I'm
Okay.
not sure where he puts them, but Derek takes care of all that.
I look for it once, but I'm not sure if maybe I didn't look in the right place.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate the information.
You're more than welcome. I just wish you all as much fun as we're having.